All right, guys, it's product review time, and today we're going to be talking about the Airthings indoor air quality monitors. So if you guys don't know a lot about indoor air quality, make sure you take a look at my other video that I just posted where I go through what indoor air quality is, what are some of the pollutants, and really why it's important. And it's especially important these days because we're all spending a lot more time inside of our houses than we ever have. We want to make sure that the air we're breathing is actually clean and is actually safe to breathe. So today, I'm going to kind of show you guys the real deal behind these sensors. I've been using them now for about 2 months, so I've got my feet underneath what they do, the kind of quirks about them. You're definitely going to want to stay put for the entire video here because I'm going to talk about how to actually use these, and it's not as simple as just taking it out of the box, placing it somewhere, and you're going to be able to trust those readings. You will for some of these sensors. But ones, especially like that VOC sensor, there's some quirks that you're going to want to know about here. So I'm going to take you guys through all of that. We're going to talk about the hardware here first, show you guys all the different pieces. And then I'm going to show you guys where to place these and which ones you guys want to go with. So with that, let's jump into a quick hardware overview. Okay, so let's talk about the different pieces that's available from Airthings. I'm going to put a link in the description to all of these to make it a lot easier for you guys because it can get confusing on which one I need. You can go right in the description, click the one, and you can purchase it if you want to. So the way you could buy these things is either you can buy them in individual pieces. So right here I have the Wave Plus. This is a Wave Plus Mini, and then this is a hub. You can buy those again all individually, or you can buy them in a package, a little bundle, and those bundles are called the Home Kit or the Home Kit Plus. The Kit versus the Plus will make more sense to you guys in just a second here, but those are the ways to purchase them. Again, links in the description. So let's go through and talk about what each one does. So the first one that I have here, the first sensor I have is the Wave Plus. I bought the Wave Plus. You can also get this sensor in just the Wave. The difference between the Wave versus the Wave Plus is the Plus can do more things. It has more sensors in it, where the Wave only has a radon detector, radon sensor in it. It can do temperature and it can do humidity. But the Wave Plus also does VOCs, will also do CO2, and will also do pressure. So if you want those additional features and functions, you're going to want to go to the Wave Plus over the Wave. Now, if I flip this around, you guys could take a look at the back, and this is how it actually mounts. There's a little plate here. You can screw this to a wall. If this is going in your basement, screw it to the stud, and then this just kind of connects in there. If you take a look at the back, there are 2 AA batteries that this thing requires, and like I said, screw it there, and then that can kind of pop back on like that. Now, this is called the Wave, right? Or the Wave Plus. So why is it called that? Because I can wave my hand over the top, and hopefully you guys can see that. But when I wave my hand over the top, it actually will show the color of the air quality. So if it's green, it's good. If it's yellow, it's something's going on. Red is bad air quality. So you can do that with the Wave Plus, and the Mini. So I move over to the Wave Plus Mini here. This does not have a radon detector in it, a radon sensor in it, but this can do temperature, can do humidity, can do VOC, and it also has a mold risk indicator. And we'll get into what that mold risk indicator is. It's not a mold risk sensor or a mold sensor. It's just an indicator of it, and I talk more about that in a little while here. But very similar. It's got the magnetic back. This actually takes 3 AA batteries on it. And this one you don't have to really screw on anything. It just kind of has the clip there on the back, and then it can be on the tabletop just like that. Then is the hub. Now, where you're going to want to use the hub is to have all these things kind of connected together. So by default, when you plug the batteries in, these things are going to just go to work, and they're going to start working automatically. They're going to start taking readings. And you can wave your hand over the top, and you can see, yep, green is good, yellow, red is bad. But, you're going to want to use the app, the Airthings app, to actually see what those readings are. And when you take these out of the box, the only way that these will work is via Bluetooth. So your phone will find them via Bluetooth, and you can go into the app, and you can actually see the readings. That's fine if you're home and everything. But if you want to view this stuff remotely and you're not going to be home, then that's where the hub comes into play. This has a Bluetooth radio built into it, and this can do Bluetooth from the hub to all your sensors in your house. And you may have multiple sensors in your house. You may have one in the basement for your radon and then a couple at, the main room areas where you want to really monitor things. So this does a good job of tying all those together. It does have an Ethernet port on the bottom of this. This does not have Wi-Fi, so make sure you have an Ethernet run wherever you're going to place this thing. Again, it's Bluetooth to these devices, so you could probably just put this thing right next to your router. The range on it is actually pretty good. I have a decent-sized house, and I had no problem picking up my sensors wherever I put them. And then it also has a power adapter on the back, and you can also mount this thing if you really wanted to. It has a little bracket on the back here. And now let's go over where you should be placing these things. And it really depends on what you're trying to measure where. So if the only thing you care about is radon, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get just the wave, and you're going to want to put the wave inside your basement. And you can mount that a couple feet off the floor. Usually no one should be crawling around the floor inside your basement. And that's just going to give you your radon sensor and tell you, make sure your radon levels are good. If your basement is more of a livable space and maybe you have it finished and the kids are down there and everything and you're down there a little bit, you may want to upgrade from the Wave over to the Wave Plus. It's still going to give you your radon monitoring, but you're also going to get VOCs and CO2. Make sure you have good ventilation down there and all those things. So in the basement area, you probably want the Wave at a minimum or the Wave Plus. Then if you move up a level, depending on how your house is built and everything, the main area, again, you probably want either a Wave Plus there, so that way you get radon, you get VOCs, because you're obviously going to be living in that area. Or if you have a radon monitor in your basement, then you can kind of decide, okay, on the main floor, do I want to go the Wave Plus or do I want to go with the Mini? Again, they'll both do VOCs, but if you're more concerned around CO2, then obviously the Wave Plus is going to have everything built inside of it. So you can take a look at that one there, and you can put this one on your main floor. And then same thing goes with your upstairs. If you're only caring about the VOCs, you can go with the Wave Mini. Again, radon should have been taken care of in your basement, so you've got that detector down there. So really the Wave Plus and the Mini, I would say for the ground floor and higher, you want to be looking at those two sensors. Now there is one more sensor, I'm going to give you guys a preview here, that I kind of just found out about. If you go to Airthings webpage, they call it the View Plus. And from my research and from doing everything on here, it really has the same sensors in it as the Wave Plus, except the View Plus also has a PM 2.5 detector, and supposedly if you log into it, you're actually going to be able to see your readings down below PM1. That's particulate matter. So that's all the dust and debris and everything that's floating around the air. The View Plus is going to have that sensor built in, so it's going to be the Wave Plus plus that particulate matter sensor built into it. Now, the really cool thing about that device is it also is going to have the the hub built into it. So what that's going to allow me to do is I don't have to have this hub anymore. I can just have the View Plus, and it's going to communicate with all my other sensors there, and it's going to put them on the internet, and then that way I can watch them from wherever I am. The other cool thing about that View Plus is it has Wi-Fi on it, so I'm no longer tethered with this hub to being very close to my router. I can place that View Plus anywhere. And why it's called the View? Because on the front of it, now there's actually a little screen that'll tell you your different readings for like particulate matter, for example, or the temperature. It's got the little screen on there to do it. Now, one other thing that I'm still trying to kind of figure out, it's kind of cool. I was, obviously doing a lot of research on Airthings, and, everything is tracked these days. So I go onto Facebook, and there's an ad for Airthings, the View Plus pre-order. In the comments, people were writing things back and forth. And one of the things that someone mentioned from Airthings is that, yep, this is what it's doing today. But they also made comment in there that there may be another hidden sensor in there. So I'm kind of trying to figure out here, what is that extra sensor? Is it going to be maybe a formaldehyde sensor? Is it going to be some other cool sensor that's in there? I guess time will tell. We'll have to see what happens, but that's pretty cool that there is another sensor in there, and they could probably just enable it off of software. All right, so let's get into the actual sensors on these things. This is what's going to be really important when you guys take these things out of the box. You're going to want to make sure you know how to use them, make sure you're reading these things correctly, making sure they're set up correctly. So it's a great opportunity too to show you guys the app. So this is what I'm in right now. This is the app, and you can see I've got my Wave Mini up top here. That's the Wave Plus Mini. It's called the Office. And then I've also got the Wave Plus, which I haven't really renamed yet. Once I figure out where that's actually going to be going, I'll probably rename that to Basement or whatever there. But I can go in here to the Wave Plus, and we can take a look at what the dashboard looks like. And here's all your sensor readings. So you've got radon, VOC, CO2, humidity, temperature, and pressure. And you can see here that CO2, that's why when I wave over this thing, it turns bright red. Because the CO2 is through the roof, because I'm only 6 inches away from this thing and I'm talking right into it. And, you know, we're probably the biggest source of CO2 in an enclosed space like this. So that's what those readings look like. I could also view this information in the web dashboard. And if you've got the hub, you know, you can log right into this from your computer. And this gets a little bit more granular where you can kind of see long-term history. You can kind of break things down a little bit better for you. So a lot of times I will go into that, and you can take a look at over time what all this stuff look like. So I'm just going to go back here real quick, and let's start talking about these sensors. So the first one on the list, and actually before we get into the sensors, there is a calibration period that we should talk about. And really the calibration period is for the VOC and CO2, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, why we need that calibration period on that. But there is a calibration period on those sensors. So with the radon, you know, they say there's a calibration period, but really with that one, we need a lot of samples in the basement or where the radon sensor is going to be to really figure out how much radon is down there, right? Because the way that the sensor works inside of these things for radon is it's an alpha spectrometry sensor that actually has a passive diffusion chamber inside of here. So what happens is air comes in and then there's a test. Air comes in and then there's a test. And air circulating around your basement, not all air is going to be, you know, diffused equally with radon in it. So the longer you have this thing down there, the better picture you're going to get as far as how much radon is in your basement. So your initial readings may be high, they may be low. Give it a week, give it a month, give it a little bit longer. You can actually start trending to see what that looks like. But I'd say, you know, you want to play it safe. You probably want to give it a week to really figure out what that real reading is in your basement. And it'll get more accurate as time goes on because it's taking more samples. And I'll click on radon just so you guys can see what that looks like inside your app. Here's mine. You know, over the last 48 hours, been extremely low. If I take a look at it over the month, really not a whole lot. I don't have a full year here. You can see here a couple months ago it was a lot higher. That's because the stack effect in the winter kind of pulls that up. But if I take a look at the month, you know, you can kind of see where that trends. And then what is radon? So this is actually really helpful. Go ahead and click that. And this kind of gives you the basis of why this sensor is important. You know, all the health effects, everything like that. If you scroll down, you know, gives you the what do my levels mean. You can take a look, you know, if you're 0 to 1.3, no actions needed. Now, take these levels with a grain of salt. You know, if you're in Canada, you know, I think they say keep everything under 2. If you're in the U.S., they usually say keep everything under 4. You know, do your own research on these. Take a look at my other video kind of talking about the effects at the different levels. But, you know, in all seriousness, if you are over 4, you probably want to do something. That's probably the place where you start to do your mitigation is if you're over 4 here. So we'll just go back. One more thing to note on the radon sensor is that it is sensitive to high humidity. And it could actually become damaged if the humidity is too high. So you want to make sure that the humidity in the area that you put this is less than 80%. So you're not going to want to put this in the shower because I'm sure when you're taking a shower, the humidity is pretty close to 100. That's why you get all that condensation on your mirror and on the glass of the shower. So just keep that in mind. Make sure it's not near humidity. You know, if it's in your kitchen, don't put it next to the area where you boil water for pasta because you're going to get a lot of humidity coming off of that. Again, could damage these sensors here. So let's jump into the VOC sensor here. And this is the one that I think is the most finicky out of all these sensors here. And there's a couple caveats you guys are going to want to watch out for. So The reason that this has a 7-day calibration period, we'll call it, is because it doesn't really know what 100% clean air is like. So over those 7 days, it tries to figure out what its lowest level of clean air looks like. So it's got a metal oxide-based sensor inside of it with a little sensitivity layer that reacts to chemicals as it's being absorbed. So it needs fresh air to figure out what fresh air is. If it's not sensing a lot of chemicals, then it's going to say, oh, that must be fresh air. So, that's where I need to put this caveat here is if you're trying to get a baseline for everything, you're going to want to expose this thing for 30 minutes a week to true fresh air. Open a window up, let it realize what true fresh air is. Then it's going to be able to detect events a lot better. If you don't do that, what's going to end up happening over time, over like 2 weeks, it's just going to take its lowest reading and be like, oh, that must be fresh air. So your VOC level could be at like 200 for 2 weeks, but it's going to eventually take that 200 level and say, okay, well, I guess that's as good as it gets. I guess that's, 0, or in this case, 46 parts per billion is actually the floor here. And then everything's going to be trending up on top of that. Now, guys, that's how all these sensors work. So, it's not that Airthings is doing anything wrong here, but that's just how these sensors work. That's the technology that we have to our disposal these days. Hopefully in the years ahead, that changes a little bit. But you do want to expose this sensor to fresh air. 30 minutes a week could probably do it, just so it knows what fresh air is. So we'll go into this sensor as well, so you guys can take a look here. Same thing. You could trend it over a week, over a month. You can go ahead and click on what are VOCs, and it'll take you into the same similar page. Scroll down, it'll give you the readings and what they are. But one more really important thing about this sensor, guys, it is a TVOC sensor. So that's total VOC sensor. It's not going to be able to break out individual components. So if you're worried about formaldehyde or you're worried about some other VOC, it's not going to be able to tell you about what is going on inside that. It's just going to give you the total value of VOCs that it senses or that it smells is basically how it works. So, use that as kind of a baseline. If you're way under that 250 number, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're always consistently high on that, you're at 500 or 600 or whatever, then, hey, what is actually causing it? A lot of times, use your nose. If you can smell it, it's probably a VOC. Remove that from the environment. Let this thing go back to work and see if that helps the issue. Or if you want to get more granular, if you want to know if you have formaldehyde in your environment, you're going to need to get a formaldehyde sensor. And I'm kind of curious if that's maybe one of those hidden sensors inside of the new View. But again, we'll see when that comes out. So I'm going to go back to the main screen here, and we're going to go into the Mini, because the last sensor that we're going to talk about here, guys, is the mold risk indicator. Again, the Mini is going to have the VOC, humidity, temperature, but it's going to have this mold risk indicator on here. And really all this is doing is giving you the mold risk based off the humidity and the temperature. I don't know why they don't give you this with the Wave Plus, since it's got a humidity sensor and a temperature sensor built in. It could probably figure this out pretty easy, but for right now it's only in the Mini. But the way that this works is it's just an algorithm. It's not actually sensing mold in the environment, right? It's not a mold test. It's just basically saying, if my humidity is high, where does it fall on that chart of where it's going to start to condensate based on the temperature? Warmer air holds more water. So, it's more of a risk if I have high humidity with high temperature. That means there's a ton of water in the air. Your mold risk is probably going to go up. If you have, colder temperatures, like it's 60 degrees or whatever, and you've got 75% humidity, there's less water in that 60 degree number than in the 90 degree number, 80 degree number, because warmer air holds more water. So you have a higher risk of mold at a higher temperature with a higher humidity level versus a lower temperature with maybe the same humidity level. So that's all this thing's really doing. It's just kind of figuring out that algorithm as far as what it is and letting you know that, hey, you have a propensity to have mold in this environment. So guys, that's the sensors that I really wanted to talk about here. Make sure you guys have those set up right, what the readings kind of really mean, and how to make sure that, you're not jumping to conclusions like, hey, I'm getting this weird thing. Give it 7 days, let it kind of figure itself out. VOC sensor, make sure you expose that to fresh air 30 minutes a week, just that way it knows what fresh air is on here if you're really worried about it. And the last thing I'll talk about, guys, is the support. The support from Airthings is like up here compared to everything else. You can go in right from the app and you can instantly just chat with people. So if you've got a question about how the sensor works, you start chatting with them. I've been getting replies in less than an hour from them, unless it's like the middle of the night, then usually when they get in the next morning, they reply to me. But it's quick, it's easy, they're extremely knowledgeable. It's kind of funny because the people that respond to you go on the webpage, like look at articles. It's like the same people writing their technical articles. So they're 100% knowledgeable on all these products. And in the rare event that you kind of stump them a little bit, and it happened to me twice when I was really digging into what some of these readings mean, they went out, went to their testing department, asked their testing department, hey, this customer has this really technical question. Can you help us to derive an answer? And within a day, I had a really, really technical answer back from their testing department. So can't say enough good things about the support from Airthings. Again, it's way above what my expectations were from a consumer product. So guys, that's kind of it. I hope you liked this video. Hope it was informative. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Post them down below, and we'll talk about them. Thanks a lot.